Big news! The hidden reason your soulmate couldn't stay with you has finally come to light. Don't skip. Because this isn't just another love story. Sometimes the truth stays hidden for years. Until one unexpected moment changes everything. Tonight's story begins with a secret that was never supposed to be discovered. And when it finally comes to light, an entire family is forced to question everything they believed. Listen carefully. No one could explain why two people who cared so deeply for one another always seemed to drift apart just when life brought them close. Every reunion ended with another goodbye. Every hopeful beginning was followed by another silence. Those watching from the outside blamed distance, timing, or fate. But none of those explanations ever felt complete. Years passed, yet one question refused to disappear. What was the real reason they could never stay together? The answer remained buried. Until one ordinary afternoon changed everything. It happened during the clearing of an old family home that had stood untouched for decades. Dust covered every shelf. Forgotten photographs lay scattered across the floor. Inside an aging wooden cabinet was a locked box that no one remembered seeing before. At first, everyone assumed it contained old documents. Instead, it contained a collection of handwritten letters tied together with a faded ribbon. And resting beneath them was a sealed envelope with only one sentence written across the front. When the truth can no longer be hidden. Open this. The room became completely silent. No one wanted to break the seal. Yet no one could walk away. Finally, trembling hands unfolded the envelope. Inside was a letter written years earlier by someone whose voice had been missing from the family's life for a very long time. The first line stopped everyone cold. If you are reading this, then the secret has survived longer than I ever imagined. A deep silence filled the room. One person slowly sat down. Another covered their face in disbelief. No one dared interrupt as the letter continued. It spoke of promises made behind closed doors. Of conversations held in whispers. Of choices that were never meant to protect love, but to control it. Every sentence revealed another piece of a hidden past. Then came the line that changed everything. They were never separated because they stopped loving each other. They were separated because someone believed the truth should never be known. No one spoke. The air felt heavier. Every memory suddenly looked different. The family began looking at one another, wondering who had known this all along. And who had remained silent. Before anyone could ask another question, a folded page slipped from the envelope and landed on the floor. Unlike the first letter, this page contained names. Real names. One by one, everyone looked toward the top of the page. The first name was familiar. The second name shocked the room. But it was the final name. The one no one expected to see. That made every heartbeat stop. And at that exact moment, someone standing near the doorway whispered, "If this page is real, Then everything we've believed for all these years has been a lie. No one knew what would happen next. Because the greatest revelation had not even been read. Yet.no1 reached for the fallen page immediately. It rested on the wooden floor as though it carried a weight far greater than paper and ink. Every person in the room stared at it, each hoping someone else would be brave enough to pick it up first. The silence became almost unbearable until the oldest member of the family slowly bent down, lifted the page with trembling hands, and unfolded it. The handwriting matched the letter perfectly. There could be no mistake. Every word had been written by the same person years ago. As the page was opened completely, everyone noticed that it was not a confession. It was a timeline. It listed dates, places, and private conversations that no outsider could possibly have known. One date marked the first time the two souls had met. Another marked the day they were unexpectedly separated. Beside that date was a single handwritten sentence: "This was not destiny. This was someone's decision." A chill swept through the room. Suddenly, memories that had never made sense began fitting together like pieces of a forgotten puzzle. Missed phone calls. Messages that mysteriously disappeared. Unexpected arguments that seemed to begin for no reason. Family gatherings where one person was always encouraged to stay away. None of it looked accidental anymore. It felt carefully arranged. One by one, people began admitting small things they had hidden for years. Someone confessed they had once been told never to mention a certain name. Another admitted they had received strange instructions to remain silent whenever questions about the relationship were asked. Someone else quietly revealed they had witnessed an emotional conversation years earlier but had been persuaded to forget it ever happened. Each confession made the room quieter instead of louder. No one wanted to believe that so many ordinary moments had been connected by one invisible thread. Then another folded note slipped from between the pages. Unlike the first, it contained only a few short lines. If you truly wish to understand why they could never stay together, do not search for the one who loved less. Search for the one who feared the truth the most. Those words echoed through everyone's mind. Fear. Not hatred. Not anger. Fear. The entire story suddenly shifted. The separation had never been about a lack of love. It had been built upon fear, misunderstanding, and a secret that someone believed would destroy the family forever if it ever became known. One relative slowly walked toward an old bookshelf and removed a dusty photo album that had not been opened in years. As the pages turned, an old photograph slipped onto the table. It showed smiling faces gathered together long before the separation happened. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then someone noticed a figure standing quietly in the background, almost hidden behind everyone else. On the back of the photograph, written in faded ink, was another sentence: "The person standing furthest away knew everything before anyone else." Every eye immediately returned to the photograph. The room fell silent once again. No one could believe that the answer they had searched for over so many years might have been staring at them from an old photograph all along. Before anyone could say another word, a slow knock echoed at the front door. 3 quiet knocks, followed by complete silence. Everyone looked toward the entrance. No one had been expecting a visitor. Yet somehow, deep inside, each of them felt that whoever stood outside knew exactly why the hidden truth had finally come to light. The sound of those 3 quiet knocks refused to leave anyone's mind. For several long seconds, no one dared to move toward the door. It felt as though the house itself had been waiting for this exact moment for years. Every heartbeat grew louder than the last until someone finally gathered the courage to turn the handle. As the door slowly opened, an elderly man stood outside with a weathered leather case in one hand and an expression that carried the weight of countless untold memories. His eyes immediately fell upon the scattered letters resting across the table. Without asking a single question, he quietly whispered, "So the truth has finally come to light." Every face in the room turned toward him in disbelief. No one had called him. No one had told him about the hidden letters. Yet somehow he already knew why everyone had gathered inside that old house. He stepped across the doorway, placed the leather case on the table, and carefully opened it. Inside rested an old journal wrapped in faded cloth, along with a small brass key attached to a piece of ribbon that had almost lost its color. The initials on the journal matched the handwriting found inside every letter. A deep silence settled over the room once again. Don't skip. Because what happened next changed the direction of the entire story. The elderly man slowly opened the journal and revealed page after page filled with private conversations, forgotten dates, and painful decisions that had never been shared with anyone outside the family. Every entry carried the same heartbreaking message. Love had never disappeared, but fear had quietly controlled every choice that followed. Someone had believed they were protecting everyone by hiding the truth, yet that very silence became the reason 2 lives drifted further apart with every passing year. As each page turned, people began recognizing moments they had almost forgotten. A canceled meeting that had never been explained. A letter that mysteriously never arrived. A phone call interrupted before the most important words could be spoken. None of those moments had been accidents. Each one had been carefully influenced by someone who believed the separation should never end. The realization left the room completely speechless. The elderly man paused before reaching the final section of the journal. His hands trembled slightly as he removed a folded photograph hidden between 2 pages. It showed the 2 people at the center of the story smiling together during happier days, completely unaware of the storm waiting just beyond that moment. Written on the back of the photograph were words that immediately filled the room with emotion: "If this picture is ever found, it means the silence has lasted far too long." No one could hold back their tears any longer. Years of confusion suddenly began making sense. Every unanswered question, every painful goodbye, every strange coincidence now pointed toward one hidden decision that had quietly shaped everyone's future. Then the elderly man unlocked a small compartment inside the journal using the brass key. Inside rested one final envelope that looked untouched despite all the passing years. Across the front were only a few handwritten words: "Open this only after everyone is ready to hear the complete truth." Every person looked at one another in complete silence. No one rushed forward this time. They already understood that each letter had revealed something even more painful than the last. Don't skip. Because the next discovery would reveal the one name no one ever expected to see. Slowly, the envelope was opened. A single page slipped onto the table. At the top was a familiar name that shocked everyone. Beneath it was a sentence that made every heartbeat stop: this person never wanted them to stop loving each other. They only believed keeping them apart was the only way to protect a secret that could destroy the entire family. Before anyone could even process those words, a mobile phone lying silently on the table suddenly vibrated. A new message had arrived from an unknown number. It contained only one line: "You have uncovered the past. But the person who started it all is still watching." The room froze. For the first time, everyone realized the story was no longer about forgotten memories. Someone connected to those memories might still be much closer than anyone had imagined. The message remained glowing on the phone screen for several long seconds. No one reached out to touch it. Every person in the room stood frozen, trying to understand how an unknown sender could possibly know what had just happened inside a house that had remained silent for so many years. The elderly man slowly looked around the room before speaking in a calm but serious voice. "This is exactly what I feared," he whispered. The truth was never buried. It was being watched. His words sent another wave of uneasiness through everyone present. One family member immediately checked every door and window, while another pulled the curtains aside, searching the empty road outside. There was no one. Only the sound of the wind moving through the old trees. Yet the feeling of being observed refused to disappear. The elderly man picked up the phone and carefully read the message again. Then, without saying another word, he opened the final pages of the journal once more. Hidden inside the back cover was a rough hand-drawn map of the property, something no one had ever noticed before. A small red circle marked a forgotten storage room behind the house, and beside it someone had written, "If the first truth has been discovered, the final evidence will still be waiting here." Every face turned toward the back window. They had all lived around that house for years, yet almost no one remembered the abandoned room anymore. Don't skip. Because the next discovery would answer one question while creating an even greater mystery. Carrying a flashlight, the group slowly walked through the overgrown path leading behind the house. Thick vines covered the entrance, making it clear that no one had entered for a very long time. After pushing the old wooden door open, dust filled the air. Broken shelves lined the walls, and forgotten boxes rested beneath faded cloths. At first glance, it looked completely empty. Then the elderly man pointed toward the far corner where an old metal trunk sat beneath a cracked window. The brass key from the journal fit the lock perfectly. As the lid slowly lifted, everyone leaned closer. Inside were neatly arranged bundles of letters, newspaper clippings, and a small tape recorder wrapped inside protective cloth. Attached to it was another handwritten note that simply read, "The voice you are about to hear never intended to hurt anyone." But one decision changed every life forever. A heavy silence settled over the room before someone finally pressed the play button. The recorder crackled softly before an unfamiliar voice began speaking. It was calm, emotional, and filled with unmistakable regret. The speaker admitted that years earlier they had discovered a truth they believed would tear the family apart forever. Instead of trusting everyone with that truth, they chose secrecy. They quietly influenced conversations, encouraged misunderstandings, delayed important meetings, and convinced others that separation was the safest path. Every decision had been made with the belief that temporary pain would prevent a greater tragedy. But as the recording continued, the voice slowly broke with emotion. "I thought I was protecting everyone. But I became the reason two innocent hearts carried years of unnecessary sorrow." Tears appeared across the room. No one celebrated the confession. No one felt anger at that moment. There was only sadness for the years that could never be returned. Just as the recording seemed ready to reveal the speaker's identity, the audio suddenly stopped. The tape had been deliberately cut before the final sentence. Everyone stared at the recorder in disbelief. The name they had waited so long to hear had once again slipped beyond their reach. Don't skip. Because someone in this very room suddenly noticed one detail everyone else had missed. One of the younger relatives carefully lifted the recorder and discovered a folded photograph hidden beneath it. On the back was today's date, written decades ago in the same handwriting as the letters. Beneath the date was one final sentence: "When this day finally arrives, look for the blue envelope. It contains the one truth no recording was ever meant to reveal." Every heartbeat quickened again. They searched through the trunk until, hidden beneath the last bundle of papers, they found a faded blue envelope sealed with untouched wax. Before anyone could break the seal, the lights inside the old storage room suddenly went out, and from somewhere beyond the doorway came the unmistakable sound of slow footsteps approaching through the darkness. Darkness filled the storage room for only a few seconds, but to everyone standing there, it felt like an eternity. The slow footsteps outside came closer, then suddenly stopped. No one spoke. No one even breathed loudly. Every eye remained fixed on the doorway until a flashlight beam cut through the darkness. The elderly man switched on the small emergency light he had been carrying, and its faint glow revealed that no stranger was standing outside after all. Instead, the wind had pushed an old wooden gate back and forth against the stone pathway, creating the sound that had filled everyone with fear. A quiet sigh spread through the room, but the tension refused to disappear. The blue envelope was still resting on the table, untouched. Every person knew that whatever was written inside would finally answer the question that had followed them for so many years. With steady hands, the elderly man carefully broke the old wax seal and unfolded the final letter. The paper had aged, yet the handwriting remained clear. The letter did not begin with excuses. It did not try to defend the past. It simply began with an apology. If you are reading this, then I no longer wish to hide behind silence. I believed that protecting one painful secret would save this family. Instead, I allowed fear to become stronger than honesty. I convinced myself that distance would heal what truth might destroy. I was wrong. The room became completely silent once again. Tears quietly rolled down more than one face as the letter continued. It explained that the separation had never happened because love was weak or because either person had chosen someone else. It happened because one frightened individual believed they were carrying a burden too heavy for anyone else to understand. That fear led to whispered conversations, delayed messages, broken trust, and years of unanswered questions. The greatest tragedy was not the mistake itself. It was allowing two people to believe they had been forgotten when, in reality, they had never stopped caring about each other. Don't skip. Because the final truth is often simpler than the stories fear creates. As the last page was turned, the elderly man slowly closed his eyes before speaking. The hidden reason has finally come to light, he said softly. It was never destiny that separated them. It was fear, silence, and choices that should have been replaced by honesty. No one argued. No one searched for another explanation. For the first time in years, every scattered memory finally made sense. The family gathered the letters, the journal, the photographs, and the recorder back into the old trunk, not to hide them again, but to preserve them as a reminder that secrets left in darkness only grow heavier with time. Outside, the first rays of morning sunlight began shining through the trees, filling the old property with a quiet sense of peace. Although no one could change the years that had already passed, everyone understood that the future no longer had to be shaped by the silence of the past. They walked away from the storage room carrying something far more valuable than forgotten documents. They carried understanding, forgiveness, and the courage to tell the truth before fear could write another family story. As the old house disappeared behind them, the elderly man looked back one final time and whispered, "Love deserves honesty." Because even the deepest hidden truth eventually finds its way into the light. And with that, the mystery that had remained buried for so many years finally came to an end, not with revenge or anger, but with truth, healing, and hope for a better tomorrow.